Hello, I'm Matteo and I'm going to debate Wild Tales, a film which was made in 2014 by director Damien Cifron and writer. And I'm going to debate this with James. May switch languages as my notes are also bilingual. Well, that's great, Matteo. I'm going to talk about a different film called quite different, Birds of Passage, which portrays an indigenous story. Although it's different in substance, it's comparable to Wild Tales, to your film, in its in the way it is marketed, the way it is internationally received, and its success as a Latin American film that began on a film circuit. So, I mean, the film, it's un compendio de 6 historias de violencia y crueldad, con mucho humor negro. Todas las historias tienen el mismo espíritu de ironía y sarcasmo, la violencia y la naturaleza cruel y salvaje del ser humano, a pesar de las normas de conducta que supuestamente hacen del hombre un ser civilizado e inteligente. Las historias se llevan al extremo y logran arrancarles a cada actor principal de una actuación fuerte emocionalmente y físicamente. So Birds of Passage opens with a ritual dance. It's a very vivid portrayal of a courtship dance from the point of view of the scene from the POV of an onlooker. It's the ritual passage of a young and influential virgin woman for meeting prospective suitors, and helps initiate the plot and what the main characters represent through the ritual dance. Socio-politically, it takes place between members of separate families in Guajira Peninsula, and it takes place in the 1970s, to which the present-day enduring drug trafficking trade of Colombia is attributed. It also takes place during times when indigenous movements began to emerge around regions of the southern continent. La franqueza de las películas en común de representar características de la vida argentina. Yes, Matteo, but we should be careful not to generalize the Argentinian audience into one class. So this depicted the struggles and daily stresses of a middle-class Argentinian. And the Argentinian story goes much broader and deeper than that. Es decir, la de la provincia o de la ciudad de Buenos Aires, capital, la clase media, se dan una fiel representación en escenas tantas como la locura boda en Erika Rivas, la furia automovilista y el crimen pasional con Leonardo Sbaraglia, hasta la importancia de la torta no negociable con Ricardo Darín y Nancy Dupla, y también la escena con Pasternak y de la alta sociedad corrupta con Oscar Martínez. So while your film tries to capture this aspect of humanity through 6 different stories, mine focuses on one story and is rooted in real events. A mi juicio, si no son simplemente una forma de entretenimiento para cualquier persona que va al cine, las historias quizás proveen la gente argentina de cierto tipo de catarsis que augura bien para una sociedad que una vez sufrió un pasado violento y cruel al extremo. Okay, so how do you think it was interpreted in Argentina? So this film was, it's Goya winning and Oscar nominated. And it's a positive example of dynamics between regional, domestic and international co-production. And it helps end a pattern of ephemerality of Latin American film, whose film output gains a very short life cycle on a film festival circuit. And attention internationally is often short. Neither domestically do films in Argentina do well. From my experience of having lived there for 6 years and people whom I spoke to, I found that domestic films usually represent a past that they want to remove themselves from, at least anecdotally. That was my observation. But this movie was a huge success there, and I saw it when it opened in Buenos Aires, and the entire cinema broke into applause at the end of the film and continued to talk about it for weeks. I think its success is attributed to Pedro Almodóvar and those brothers in a certain sense, It builds around their already established international success, builds on the success of all of those wonderful, well-known actors who are Argentinian in the film. Well, this film received a lot more attention than it would have had it not marketed in a certain way. For example, it appears to be an epic drug crime. The posters represent, or they hark to posters of The Godfather, through its even through trailers and teasers. The trailer contains the courtship dance, and the way that it is edited, the indigenous music is quickly sort of replaced by electronic, quick music followed by, to match quick editing. It really portrays an epic drug crime genre. Much like the dance itself, it is trying to entice you in to come and see it, or to come a bit closer. One of the main characters in the opening ritual dance is sort of rejected at the beginning of this film, and then he has to then go in search of a large enough dowry to try again to propose marriage to this daughter of one of the strongest, daughter of a strong matriarch. In those terms, on that scale, it is an epic drug crime film, and even the creators themselves branded it that way. There should possibly have been more indigenous people involved in the making of the film, seeing as though it is their story, because of the linguo-cultural ties implied in a society with so many systems and subsystems systematized into their own language. One of the most significant points in the film for me is when the language messenger is killed. One of the most profound parts of the film to me is when Zaida, the daughter of the matriarch, sort of appeals in protest to her mother before the opening ritual scene that she only wants to dream and to see what else may lay outside the community. And her mother teaches her, in effect, that it is okay to dream, as it provides evidence of a soul. So what is sage about this kind of wisdom that hints at blind ambition? It not only was a financial success in Argentina, but also in Spain and Italy and throughout South America. You can read about that in Mident's 2015 paper. Films don't normally do that well in Argentina, and look at the Clarín article of 2014 on the subject to support that also. So it won in 2015, it was nominated for Oscars. The film benefited by international film circulation, and it obtuvo el premio de la National Board of Review in 2015, el premio de público en el Festival de Sarajevo. Fue elegida como mejor película europea, ya que es una cooperación con España en el Festival International de Cine en San Sebastián. It won awards in festivals in Lima, France, London, Sao Paulo, Uruguay, Bosnia, Havana, and Santiago. There are different layers to the film. The man who is proposing marriage comes from a different society with different systems. Very much so the indigenous lady to whom he is promoting is already part of a indigenous society with different kinship systems, which refers to kingship systems and their subsystems, the marking of identity, roles and responsibilities, for example, are all embedded into this society, and this internal structure is systematized into their language. What's important not only for land ownership and management obligations and ceremonial business, but it's also helped keep their societal order. So there are different layers to the film, in that the disruption caused by the man wishing to propose marriage, and the disruption to the larger disruption by the drug trade established between Latin Americans and North Americans, and disruption on a larger scale there. So this is supposed to represent an extended sort of colonialism and represent this kind of hierarchy that people have with respect to race. Immediately you can see three layers already here, and these are systems that have continued through imperial independence, wars, and first inhabitants had continued to suffer subjugation, intervention, exploitation, and appropriation of land and property, and still do. What's interesting about local Australian media in how they report on these things is they seem to think that these are issues that are very far removed from us and that are not underneath our noses every day. So my question is, to what extent are these issues presented in Colombia, memorialized by Australians and removed from our own society or conscience? And what is the threat in negotiating and including Indigenous peoples into our constitution? What threat does that pose to powerful imperial ideologies that do not end with the decline of the British Empire, but continue until today? The Spanish influence is evident. Almodovar's production company contributed to the film, and you can read about all of this with Hall 2015, and Spanish viewership numbers in the 720,000 in Spain. Financial influence is seen in Programa Ibermedia's contribution, and they have a success record already with, for example, La Teta Asustada and No. And it was also a hit in the US, England, Germany, and Asia. So I believe the film broke molds in that it did cover societal issues in Buenos Aires and then perform very well in Argentina, despite the mentioned repugnance for these kinds of matters in films. And I think I'm glad that it did so well internationally, even though it seems to have been interpreted in various ways, by looking at, for example, the Daily Telegraph articles that came out at the time, the way that Spain presents it as a work of their own. For example, the violence in this film is attributed to something particularly Spanish, on the back of the Spanish director's previous works. However, I didn't see it that way, and it seemed Argentinian to me. SBS's reviews sort of distance it, and the Daily Telegraph don't touch on the deeper issues, deeper matters of the film, and just prefer to review it as some kind of light-hearted, violent picture. Tragically, the wisdom within this largely matrimonial Wayu kinship system, the one represented in the film, the system to keep in check this type of self-destructive capitalist ideologies that outside agents destabilize it with, is lost.